name is Melissa Jeter, Librarian Specialist for the Art Tatum African American Resource Center, located in the Kent branch of the Toledo-Lucas County Public Library. Welcome to the Art Tatum African American Resource Center's Oral History Project, the Edrene Cole Collection. Dr. Edrene Cole was a local African American historian and educator who began collecting the stories of noteworthy Toledoans in the African American community. With this oral history project, the Art Tatum African American Resource Center honors her memory and her work. Join me and University of Toledo Professor of Anthropology, Dr. Willie McKether, as Toledo's very own African Americans share the stories of their lives.
Hi, I'm Dr. Willie McKether. In this segment, we're pleased to welcome Mrs. Gwen Ellis. Ms. Ellis, welcome and thank you for joining us.
It's nice to be here.
Well, great. Ms. Ellis, your life is significant for a number of reasons to us. One, because you're a retired school teacher from Toledo Public School District. You're the widow of the great Clampton Boots Ellis, and you are a member of Warren AME Church and can give us some history of that institution as well. So thank you for being here. We so much appreciate it. So let's begin with a little bit of your early history. I know that you arrived to Toledo in 1962 and began your teaching career, but I know prior to that you had been to Toledo. Can you talk a little bit about your involvement with Toledo prior to 1962?
Well, I was a student at Wilberforce University, and I had friends here in Toledo. And I had friends who were not only that I known from Wilberforce and Central State, but from Warren AME Church. So they invited me to come, and I came quite often. And I had a friend at Wilberforce University. I never called him my boyfriend, but he would come to Toledo. They would have the young guys up playing sessions. Okay. And some of us would follow them. So I came to Toledo for more reasons than one.
But it's not a very good reason.
Yes. In coming to Toledo, we also were looking at the fact that when I finished school at Wilberforce, we wanted to teach. And Toledo seemed like a good place, and they were looking for black teachers, and that was a good thing. Okay. So we kept our eye on Toledo, and finally I was interviewed on campus. They interviewed some of us who were going into education, and for that great institution from Wilberforce University, being the oldest black university, that was one of the places that they were looking for us. And so I came to Toledo for a second interview, and I was hired.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. In 1962, you started that school year then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What was the first school that you were assigned to in Toledo?
The first school I was assigned to was Gonko. Okay. And the principal was a very unique gentleman. He was the first black principal in Toledo, and he was tough. And the first thing he told me and some other young teachers who were hired, you're not campus queens anymore. You are teachers. You are community leaders. And he said, I don't want to hear anything negative about my young teachers. And he told us, he said, if you go out, he said, I know you're young and you want to go out to some of the clubs, but if you want to go out, I would advise you find a way to Detroit. I don't want to hear of my teachers out dancing and drinking when they're going to come in on Monday morning and teach our young people.
And he was serious.
He was serious about it. He meant what he said.
What was his name?
Mr. Emery Leverett.
Emery Leverett.
Mr. Emery Leverett.
Now, just to be clear, though, he was speaking not just to black teachers, but to all of his teachers.
All of the teachers. If you taught in his school, he was speaking to you, whatever color you were. But at that time, most of the black teachers were concentrated in the black community.
Okay.
Mostly. There might have been a few, but mostly, they knew where to find the black teachers.
And you were mostly assigned to schools that were mostly populated by black students.
Yes, right.
Well, was that a bad thing necessarily or a good thing?
At that time, it was a good thing. And the reason for that was we felt more qualified to instruct our young black students. We didn't think about it as we do today. Today you don't want everybody centralized in a certain place because of their color.
Right.
But back during those days, the black teachers were in the black schools because we were the people that I guess the community felt were more qualified to work with the black children and teach them.
Sure.
And not worry about how or what you say, being careful about the color that you are. We just let them know that they were black students and we were proud of them and we wanted them to grow to be good citizens. We could speak those things to them more so than if we were another color.
I think it's a good thing because keep in mind the history of Toledo and other communities, a time where there were very few African American teachers.
That's right.
So I think this move to bring in additional students, teachers, that students could identify with was a good thing.
Yeah.
It was a good thing. And it was a time also when teachers were held to a particular standard.
Yes, they were.
That's what your principal was kind of telling you. And respected.
That's right.
In fact, now I'm asking you this: Do you think that's changed? Do you think teachers are now held to a lesser standard than earlier?
To a certain degree, I think so. I recently heard that the number one role model that children, according to children, are outside of their parents and their ministers are teachers. So I think teachers still have to kind of be on a level of high standards. I noticed during my teaching career, later years, I would find myself addressing certain issues to younger teachers. How you dress, and you have a great influence on young people. Sure. You can expect them to keep their pants up if you're coming in as a young teacher with your pants sagging.
Right.
Or if your dresses are above your knees. Like Mr. Leverett used to say, if you sit down and your dresses are above your knees, you better go home and change. I will send you home to change.
Wow.
So that was, and so it's, I think they hold them in high standards still.
Well, good. Good. Well, I know you told me at one point that one of your first encounters with Edrene Cole. Mm-hmm. And what was that again? Tell me about that experience with Edrene.
In my first year at King School. I was 1 year at Gonko, and then I was out on maternity leave, and when I returned, I was at King School. Okay. And the first day that I came into King and getting my room ready for the students later that week, this little cute young lady came walking in, and she introduced herself as Edrene Cole. Mm-hmm. She said she had been teaching about 5 years, and she wanted me to know that as a new teacher in her building, if there was anything that I needed or I had questions and didn't want to go to the principal, she'd be glad to answer them for me and help me out.
Really?
And we were friends from there on.
Wow.
She was a wonderful little lady, powerful, packed.
What are some of your fondest memories, or when you think of Edrene Cole, what are some of your thoughts of her?
Edrene was a lady in every sense of the word. And she was someone that you looked at and you'd like to be like, because she had charisma and she was sophisticated, and yet and still she was dynamic. I had an opportunity to work with her not only as a teacher in education, but we worked together with Church Women United. She was very active in Church Women, and I became active. And we hosted one of the big conventions that was held here in Toledo. And she always, if you didn't do something right or say something right, Edrene was not going to let it get by.
Really?
But she had a very sophisticated air about her and how she approached you. I think now, as she.
These are very classic.
You don't have to, but I would suggest. Or she'd just say, we need to change this. This will not work. Yeah. And we just, everyone would sit up and take note of Edrene. And when she walked in the room, she just brought an air of confidence about her. And it's like, oh, Edrene's here. Now we can get started. I know she's going to change. Let's see what she says. But she was just a lovely lady. That and another thinking about her, I think when she worked with the Toledo Excel program,
Yes, absolutely.
and that's when I started taking my youngest daughter. Was because of Edrene.
Is that right?
She said, I want to see you there. I know you're going to have Karen there. I said, I know that's right. I will have her there. But she was a great influence on children.
Absolutely.
And she didn't accept anything. There wasn't one way of doing things with that dream.
Really?
There was a variety of how we can do this, or how we can change this, or how we can approach this so that we can get through to our kids on what's right and what will make them a better citizen, a better man, a better woman. That was just the way she was.
Well, I think that we lost a jewel when we
A
lost
jewel.
her, and her influence still exists throughout
Yes,
the
it
city.
does.
And
Yes,
so,
it does.
And that's why I think it's so important for people like myself and you and others even
Yes.
to continue the work that she had started
Oh, my,
as far as
yes.
documenting the history so that current and future generations know where
Right.
they came from,
They
have a
need
sense
to
of
know,
themselves,
yes.
a culture. So that's why I'm so glad to be a part of this project.
Oh, I wish some of these children today could have the influence of Edrene Cole,
Sure.
those that never got an opportunity to know her.
Sure, sure.
And even down to how you should dress and carry yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like you, I think we need to keep those people who've influenced our society, we need to keep them, their principles and their ideas and alive and pass them on
Absolutely.
to the children. They need to know.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
One thing I'm proud of, a few years ago, I was elected the Teacher of the Century. They wrote in the Toledo, Ohio Federation of Teachers newspaper, they had a list of titles, and I was selected the Teacher of the Century. I stood up at the University of Toledo, and there are about 600 or 800 people there, in the middle of all of those people, and addressed them on the issue of doing the best as parents and teachers to develop our young people to be the best. And I ended up on the 11 o'clock news. I couldn't believe it. But I didn't mind speaking out.
Well, that's quite an honor and distinction.
Yeah, it was.
Which says that a number of people must have thought very highly of you
Yes.
in order to nominate
Yeah.
you for
Yeah.
such a prestigious recognition.
And could I share another uh, thing with you? At Pickett School in 70, see, I just was on maternity leave, and I got a call that they were selecting a group of teachers to come to Pickett, because Pickett needed some good teachers to kind of get that school under control. And we went to Pickett, and we got those kids together. They were out of control. Now, this was in 71.
Really?
They wouldn't let the teachers check in. They had junior high at that time. I'm sorry. Pickett was junior high at that time,
Okay.
and so it was from kindergarten through 8th grade.
Okay.
And the junior high kids were just out of control.
Really?
This was in 70,
Wow.
72. And we organized parents, we organized, give one, take one. We'd have fashion shows, talent shows. We tried to develop kids' character and teach respect, responsibility. We demanded certain things of them, we kind of organized and got them together. And that's when Wayne Graham became principal.
Okay.
And he really worked with us.
Well, let me ask you this, because you have 38 years of teaching experience. You went into a school and you helped to transform it. What does it take? I guess two questions. What does it take to be a good teacher is one question. And secondly, in your opinion, how important is parental involvement?
Number one, it takes, you cannot teach, number one, if you don't care for children and the development of children. It's not a job that you go in for the money. If you're in there for the money, you're not going to last anyway. To be a good teacher, you've got to, first of all, as I said, care for the children. But you've got to be willing not only to care for them enough to, when they're wrong, say they're wrong, you're wrong, I'm not going to tolerate this, that's fine. But you've got to be able to take the time to work with them. I would work with the kids and I would work with their parents. If you look at the schools that are successful, people don't think about this. You look at the schools that have the highest scores, and those schools are where parents are involved. Not only the parent, the teacher, but the churches have to play a role.
Okay, so we had another
Churches.
another layer.
Yes, yes.
Churches need to be involved.
The churches. The pastor who has the attention of the congregation? Who do the congregation look up to? The pastor. And he can influence his congregation. It's a threefold thing. It's a three-way connection. The school, the home, the church. And the church is part of the community.
What about those churches that get so big till they seem to lose that connection with the community?
Right.
And how do you, I don't know the answer, but how do we sort of bring those churches back into the fold, make them realize just how important and significant they are in the development of children?
Right.
Because I think you're absolutely correct.
If your pastor can address his congregation, we can't have our children walking around with pants hanging down. We need to do this. They're going to listen to that man of God.
That's right. Okay, yeah, so it sounds as though then you attend a very progressive church. What church do you attend?
I'm a member of Warren African Methodist Episcopal Church.
And have you been there since you've been in Toledo then?
I've been there I've been at Warren since I've been in Toledo, yes.
Have you really?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So Warren is a progressive church
Yes.
then?
Yes.
Okay.
it is.
Now, is Warren one of the oldest black churches in Toledo?
It is the oldest.
Okay.
Not only in Toledo, but worldwide, the AME Church is the oldest black denomination of any, not only churches, but the oldest black denomination, period. The oldest black organization that organized, period,
Okay.
in
So,
1787.
so the word African suggests that it was organized by people of African descent.
Of African descent.
Okay.
Methodist is because the founder, Richard Allen, he believed in the Methodist tradition, the way of doing things, an orderly way of doing things. And Episcopal means the church is led by elected bishops. And the church is divided into 20 Episcopal districts in the United States, South, West, Central Africa, the Caribbean, Canada. It's a worldwide denomination. at
But it was a
time.
time when there were probably very few African Americans in Toledo,
Yeah.
and those that were here obviously organized the church. I
Yes.
think I read somewhere that the church Warren started with about 8 members,
Yes, it
and has
did.
grown to
Yeah.
today to probably, I imagine, close to 1,000 or more maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but it continues to function.
Started in in a home. I think the shoe crafts called a meeting in their home, and that was the first meeting.
Okay.
And then they've moved about. They were located in several areas, and as they grew, they moved. I think I don't know if you know the Marker downtown
Mhm.
on Summit, and
Yes.
that was the. I'm not sure that was. Yeah, that was the first church. Warren Church, and then it moved from there to Ewing and Norwood,
Okay.
and then finally the site now on Collingwood in
Okay.
Indiana.
Well, again, it sounds as if the church has grown by numbers, but it's also making paradigm shifts to reflect the needs of people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what
Yes,
a
it
church
does.
ought to do. I think
That's the way it should
an appropriate
be.
role for a church.
Right.
Okay, good. Okay, Gwen, let's shift gears a little bit. In the opening segment, introduction, I indicated that you were also the widow of one of the greatest musicians in Toledo, Clampton Boots Ellis.
Yeah.
Talk about, how did you all meet, first of all?
We met at Wilberforce.
Okay.
And Wilberforce University has a great choir, and they travel and do concerts, but it's also recruitment. Well, I was already at Wilberforce, and as a freshman, I don't know whether he was even planning to come to college or not, but the choir went to his home and did a concert, Buffalo, Niagara Falls, New York, and he was impressed. So he eventually ended up enrolled in Wilberforce, so he came that following fall.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, they have freshman talent shows. And so everybody's gathered in the auditorium for the freshman talent show. And I had kind of, you kind of look around at the new freshmen and so forth and so on, but that's all you know. But someone had come up to me and said, Gwen, he played the the organ and he sang. I'll never forget the song he sang because he had a backup. And he was playing the organ, he was singing "The Still of the Night." You're too young to know that. By the Five Satins.
Still
"In
of
the
the
Still of the Night." And we were sitting back, and somebody said, "Hey, Gwen, he's interested in you." I said, "Get away from me, I'm not interested in him." But before the night was over, we were saying, "Daddy-o." I was saying, "Play, Daddy-o, play." And this is really, you won't believe this. He came, I had already sent word up there that I wasn't interested. Someone had told me. At that time, I weighed barely 100 and maybe 108 pounds.
Okay.
When that show was over, he picked me up and took me all the way back to the end of the auditorium and gave me a kiss on the cheek. And I just...
And that for you.
Yeah, so that's how we first met.
Wow, what an introduction.
And he was a musician. He played for everything, and we used to go to his concerts. They had like around town, the girl students couldn't go out. They had to be in at a certain time. But the guys could go into town like Xenia and Dayton. And he was always playing somewhere at some club or some event. And he just got to be a popular, everything. They said Boots, they called him Bootsy. His name was Clampton Ellis. Bootsy's gonna play. Bootsy's gonna play. So everybody would just fall out when he'd play.
Including you, the way it sounds.
Yes, yes. And of course, he followed me to Toledo, and he started playing at different places around Toledo. And he and Mike Holly and Pee Wee Glover and them ended up at a place called the Green Light. That was a big place in Toledo, the Green Light. Everybody would go to the Green Light. And the Mike Holly Trio, and it was Boots, Mike, Pee Wee, and they would play there and that's where we would be on the weekend.
Okay.
And then the Board of Education invited him to teach music, and he did. He taught for a couple of years, but he was into the entertainment. And so that took charge.
And where did the name Boots or Bootsy come from?
His mother. His mother called him Bootsy. And they had, when he was little, she said, he loved to put on his father's boots. That was his, some kids would be playing with toys. He played with the toys for a while, but he would find him a pair of boots and put them on.
Really?
And his mother started calling him Bootsy. Bootsy, here comes the little boot boy. And that's how he got stuck with that name.
Wow. Because I must tell you, because when I first met Mike Holly, and he kept saying Boots, I'm like, this can't be the guy's real name. But everyone around here referred to him as Boots. And it took me a while to realize what his first name was, because Boots seemed to have stuck.
Yeah, it's hard to have people understand his name is Clampton. I called him Clampton. But that he got stuck with that name, and when they would introduce him, like at when he would perform, and they'd always say, and Bootsy on the organ, introducing Bootsy, Boots Ellis, and he played in Cleveland for quite a while at a place called the Siraj House, and the headlines would read, Boots Ellis.
He must have loved playing, obviously.
That man could play the organ like, nobody. It was he played with I don't know if you ever heard of Jimmy Smith, but he was a great organist. He played with him. He went on tour with him all over the country. There were some other musicians he, played with. And I never knew who he was going to bring by the house. Somebody would be in town. He'd end up playing before the main event would come on. Then I'd look up, he'd call, fix something. I'm bringing such and such. I go, oh, gosh. I said,
right?
oh, my goodness. But,
Wow.
yeah, he was some kind of musician.
Well, obviously so, because
Yeah.
his name is still mentioned
Yes,
among the
yes,
greatest.
it is. It
So
is.
He was
And in
absolutely-
Waterloo, Iowa, I didn't mention this. I finished East High School in Waterloo, Iowa. My dad was an AME preacher, and he built a new church there and everything. But on East 4th Street in Waterloo, all the little clubs and everything, that was blacks hung out. That's where and when he came, we spent this one summer there with my mom after my dad passed. And I had a lot of brothers still live there and sisters. They had hired him to play at this club on East 4th Street in Waterloo. They call Waterloo Little Chicago of Iowa. He played, and the man said they never had so many people. That's the white people start coming in, all races
Really?
start coming to that little club to hear him play.
Now, what year did you all marry?
We married in 1959.
59.
But he went back to school to finish. He hadn't finished Wilberforce.
Okay.
And he went back to finish.
He finished school. Okay.
And so that reason is why he didn't graduate right away. He wanted to go back there and finish from Wilberforce.
Okay.
And then he came here and he did, like I said, get a teaching job, but he wanted to do
He wanted to be out
the
playing.
concert in the nightclub.
Okay. So as we wrap things up, is there anything that we've not talked about that we should talk about?
Not really. You've covered so much. I enjoyed the conversation with you. I just want to, and I've said this during the conversation over and over, I just would love to see more adults who have been successful. And it doesn't mean you got to be a PhD or anything, but have done something and made something of themselves, experienced something, should pass it on to our young people. So many of our young people are suffering. Some of them don't know they're suffering, but they're following a wrong path, so many of them. They're being influenced the wrong way. And maybe it's because we can blame it on the media and all of that, because some of what we see on the media is not good. But, and maybe the parents may not be, or may be falling short, but maybe we can help and inspire parents to help their kids, because we have so many young parents.
Absolutely.
And maybe they need to be uplifted and inspired. So anything that we can do as adult leaders in the community, we owe it to our young people to help build them up and develop them to be the citizens that they can be. Whatever it is we have to offer that's positive, we need to reach out to our children. We see something wrong, don't just push it aside, it's none of my business. And I'll tell you this, I see a young person doing something wrong. I don't care who they are. I will mention to them, dear, don't do this, or could I suggest that you do this? And do you know, I can't even think of one time that they said to me, oh, shut up, old lady. They usually listen. I say, you're a nice-looking kid. You got so much. I'm so proud of. But could I suggest what I just saw you do, or whatever it is they're doing? I said, think about it before you. Don't talk to her like that, or don't do this. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Or sometime they'll say, I told you guys, I told y'all better, you know. But whatever it is, if you can help a young person, help them. Give them some good advice and give them a good word. They'll never forget it.
Very well put. On that then, let that be the very last word. Ms. Ellis, again, thank you ever so much for spending this time with us today.
Appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation.
I did too. Thank you.